Hi, everyone. Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. On today's show, we have a bit of a firecracker. We have Farnoosh Brock. She is the founder at prolificliving.com. She's a career and business coach, author, and speaker, and I think you are going to totally enjoy learning about her story if you don't already know her story already. So welcome, Farnoosh.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. So nice to be here.
It is so nice to find. We met recently we've followed each other online for a while. We actually met in person recently at New Media Expo, which was awesome. And, it was just, I love your story and can't wait to share that with the audience.
Thank you. Me too.
So listen, first question I usually ask someone is tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how that kind of got you to where you are today.
Okay, so first of all, thank you again for having me. And my story is, I studied engineering in college because that's what my dad thought I should do. I went to grad school and he was disappointed I didn't go all the way to PhD. But, after a master's degree, I'm like, I'm done. I need to go make a living. And I ended up in a small startup and then in corporate America for a very long time. I was there for 11 years. And, the usual story where you go through it. At the beginning, it's really fun and exciting. And then you start wondering, is this all there is? What am I doing here? And I did absolutely everything in corporate America. I was engineering, project management, program management, process improvement, sales operation, executive communication, you name it, I did it because I was looking for something that would make me happy. And I had a lot of success, a lot of fun. I made a lot of money. Well, not a lot, but, I had a comfortable living. And then I started blogging on the side. This is one of my escape plans because I was so unhappy at my job, along with all my other escape plans. And it was just a hobby. But over time, it grew and it surprised me more than anyone. And I went to Blog World 2010, and that changed everything, where I basically started looking at my blog as a business, not a hobby anymore.
That's
so I came
huge.
home. It's huge. It changes everything. I came home and I hustled like crazy. I wrote my first ebook. I started my newsletter. I created my first product, and I resigned 6 months later from my nice 6-figure job. And I started building this business that I had no idea what to do. I'd never taken a business class. I had never taken a writing class, but I just had a feeling, and it was a feeling. And, I'm an analytical, logical person, and I still went with the feeling because, this is the one thing that was making me happy.
I love that.
Yeah. So since then, I've tried everything, writing books, podcasting, self-publishing, creating my own products and programs, speaking. And we just have a new book come out by a traditional publisher. So the self-publishing actually led to a new opportunity, a new, thing for us. And I just hired my husband out of his corporate job. So that's my little story.
I love that story, Farnoosh. And what I really like about it is that, I think, and correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but you continued to move up the corporate ladder and try different things because you had a void and you weren't happy. And although you were making that 6-figure salary, sometimes that doesn't mean everything. And I think some people go, wow, how could you really quit a job? I think you worked at Cisco, correct? How could you
That is correct.
quit a job at a Fortune 100 company that you were well respected, you were doing well? How do you give that all up?
Yeah.
But it wasn't making you happy.
You know what? I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I love money. I do. I'm not shy to say it. And I wanted to become a vice president at Cisco. I had lots of ambitions. I loved it. But you know what? It was making me so unhappy. And you come to a point of no return. I don't know if you've ever watched that movie, but the name is great. Point of no return, where you just can't look at the same. You just can't look at anything the same way. You don't want the dreams that you wanted. And you can continue staying miserable. A lot of my colleagues do because they just can't give it up because they've invested too much time in it.
Right.
But I just think, I just had an awakening. Like, everything I have known wasn't working. So I had to find a different way to live my life. No, I just started believing different truths. Like, this is not it. This is not success. This is not happiness. And you open opportunities for yourself.
You mentioned when you first were telling us a little bit about yourself that your father kind of pushed you toward engineering and he was upset that you didn't get a PhD. So What did your father say when you left that job at Cisco?
Yeah.
And how did your family handle that? I mean, was that tough?
Yeah, they did not support it. My mom was really the one that really wanted me to stay. It was a stable job, maybe you'll have a family one day, health insurance, which is such a big deal to everyone, health insurance. Like, and my father, he had watched me go through my misery. And I think he just said, I think she's exploring new things. So I think he was respectful. And my mom had a hard time with it. My brothers thought it was crazy. My in-laws were really, really shocked. They were shocked when I quit. They are still in shock when my husband quit, because that's really breaking.
You've now pulled your husband to the other side.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing I say, because I talk about this, Sheila, because getting your loved ones to support you is a big deal. You don't have to make them understand. This is very important, because they are not going to understand. As long as they can see that you are going to be happy, this is what you want, and you can ask for their love and support, but not understanding, because expecting them to understand the generation gap, it just makes it so hard, and you just have to accept that.
I agree. And it's tough anyways when you talk about this online world, right? Because if you're not in it, people think that it's out there in space, don't have a clue what you're talking about. They think that you've gone off the deep end and that you're one of those crazy marketers, right? And that's not what you're doing at all. But you have to get it's like that used car salesmanship thing that you have to get people over.
Right. Yeah, no, it's hard. Exactly. That's the understanding part. How do I tell my mother-in-law what I do for a living? I mean, how do I explain that? Now that I have a real book, everyone gets that. Okay?
Yeah, it's tangible.
It's tangible. I mean, I don't consider that my biggest accomplishment by any stretch of imagination. But if people do, if it helps them see what I'm doing, that's fine by me. So.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific point. So let me ask you this. Now, did you everything that you learned, so you've podcasts, you've written a book, and I know you said early on when you started blogging, you weren't really a writer. Did you just teach yourself all of these things?
Yes. All of it. I mean, I have written now about 500 blog posts, dozens for other websites, about 6 books and programs. And I just love creating content. I have a lot to say, a lot. I can't help it. And I just absolutely taught myself. I didn't, online education, books, blogs, just, the world, right? There's so much resources, and it was all teaching myself. And the more I learned, this is like the university I really wanted to attend, the learning I wanted to have, because it's so interesting.
I agree. It's something that we're not taught. We don't teach our youngsters that now. I mean, we teach them to go down one path. And the other day I was talking to a friend. I think her kiddo's in like junior high, and they're wanting this child to pick what they want to be when they grow up, so they can, for high school, start down this path. Yeah. Well, I'm in my 40s and I barely know what I want to do. So how can a young child know that?
I know. That's a hard one, because parents want to help. They want to help you have this stable future. I'm not a parent, but I can relate to that feeling. But I think as a child, you don't know as children. I think gathering skills, cultivating skills is going to be the best use of their time. They don't have to know they're going to be a fireman or a doctor 10 years down the road. But I think if there is interest in different skills, the more skills you pick up, the more invaluable you become in your life. So if your children don't know, just have them keep learning all the time.
I agree.
Cannot go wrong.
And that's what we do. I mean, it's like when you said you started off, you didn't know exactly what you wanted to do, but you knew you wanted to do something different. So let me ask you this. How did you kind of narrow that down and get on the path that you are now?
Right. I don't think I've narrowed it at all, but if you see it that way, that's great. because I feel like, I'm still exploring, but I finally started seeing how my business it has a health niche and it has a career niche. And I want to live in both worlds. The health is more my juicing, my green juicing books and clinic and all that. And I'm very interested in it because I'm constantly exploring health. Then the career stuff is I really want to help people who are miserable in their jobs. I feel like I have really a lot to offer because I mentored people in my corporate job. After I figured out the landscape, I have created programs around that. And I get results when I coach people, to either help get promoted in corporate America or get out. Those are the 2 two areas of expertise. So I think it wasn't so much narrowing. It was just, this is my passion, and trying to put it in a way that people can relate. Like, hopefully that quick description gave you an idea what my business is. I have a health pillar and a career pillar. But I don't think I know exactly what I'm going to do, 6 months from now or a year from now. It's still exploring and also being smart so that I have some income streams to run the business. And it's a balance. Right?
I love that. Well, let me ask you this, because before I started in the online business, I had an offline business, and all of my eggs were in one basket. And I know you've talked about this. You have different income streams. So how did you learn about that, and how are you doing that, and how's that working for you?
Okay, right. Yeah, no, after I left my job, I didn't just leave my job. I left that mindset behind. I thought, making a 6-figure income, my future was set, and I was really being smart. But if you really think about it, one person in some office can terminate that. It's one income stream. It's not that hard. People lose their jobs all the time. And so to me, now the security, I think entrepreneurship is actually a very safe way to approach your life, because you are actually looking at those multiple income streams. So I started studying the multiple income streams, and I started being selective because I want to make a living on my own terms. So I didn't want to, for example, do Google AdSense anymore. I did that. It's just not, not my thing. But I think multiple income streams is very important, obviously, because the income is coming from multiple places. If one dries up, you have several other ones. And then I started exploring, Sheila. I had no idea what was going to take off. I wrote this juicing book while on holiday in Australia, 2 weeks, okay? And it has sold thousands of copies. I think maybe up to 3 or 4 on Amazon. And so Amazon has been sending me a, 4-figure, 4-figure check every month. So, that, and I had no idea. I didn't plan that. I just knew I want to write. I need this resource for my juicing clinic and my juicing community. But then my first book completely flunked. My first product completely failed. And so it was just exploring. And then I created a product a year and a half ago, and it's just now selling. So there's so many different ways to look at it, and coaching, which is, working with people.
And such a strong story. And I'm so happy that you were willing to say that it's not all, beautiful roses and flowers, right? And you did have some failures, but you keep moving forward. And I think some people are so afraid of that. What if I fail? Yeah. So what? And I don't even consider it failure. I consider those things stepping stones to my next project or my next big thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't fail, it's no fun. I mean, if I had a best-selling book with my first one, I wouldn't have come all the way and created this one. This is the new book. The new book.
Yeah.
See? Yeah. But if I had maybe done really well with the first one, I probably wouldn't have. I don't know. Stop writing. No, failures are great. You know what's not so great is fear of failure. That's a complete waste of time. But failure, it teaches you so much. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I failed at many things, and I don't think I would go back and change that, because I think they've made me a better person today, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes. It makes you richer, more wise, and it gives you perspective, and it's wonderful. If you were just to succeed, I mean, none of the successful role models you have in your life, they haven't had a rosy path, or they wouldn't be the people they are.
I agree. So let's talk about this. So now you just said that your juicing product has just finally started selling. So it's a true actual product, correct?
Right. No, my juicing product started selling. My juicing book started selling when I first wrote it. So it's not an actual product. So the juicing story, okay. I'll tell you a real quick snapshot of the juicing story. I wrote a blog post in 2009 that went viral. And I did nothing about it. So I was getting thousands and thousands of hits. I was #1 for several keywords in Google. Finally, I started writing more about juicing, starting a newsletter, and I wrote that book when I was on holiday a year and a month ago.
And let me just, and then this is just something that you were personally doing, right? I mean, it was, Okay.
Yeah, it's just for fun. I mean, it was on my blog, but I wasn't thinking of it as business. It was just for fun. And when I wrote the book, I started selling it on my website. So immediately that one was selling, was one of my best products. And it was digital, to answer your question. Completely digital. Caused so much confusion, but it was a digital book. Then I put it on the Amazon Kindle store. It did nothing for a month, but then it started selling 300-400 copies a month. And it's a $10 book, and it kept that until now. Like now it sells 200-300 copies a month, but that's amazing volume for me.
Sure.
And that attracted the traditional publisher with this new book. So this is my first physical book, my first physical product, actually.
And how hard was it to? I hear a lot of things about how tough it is to write a book. Was it tough? Was it any tougher than doing your digital product, or about the same amount of work?
I would say no, but for me, I love to write. Like in November, I wrote 100,000 words into my new book. 100,000 words, right? And I love to write. So for me, it's not a struggle, but I think that the writing process, but I think the marketing side is a challenge for me, So you have to know your strengths, but writing a book isn't an astronomical effort. If you have focus and discipline, I've just interviewed several of my favorite authors for my show, and all of them, a schedule, focus, discipline, write every day, like Stephen King tells you, and you do it. So no, writing a book is fabulous. It'll do wonders for your business.
And I think you just have to get out there. It's like you said, it becomes a habit. Smart habits, right? I think you talk about a lot about smart habits.
Exactly. It's a habit, right?
It is a habit. And habits, I don't know if you've read that. I wish I could think of that habit book that I just recently read.
Is it a yellow cover?
Yes.
I have that on my wish list. It is. Yeah, I have to read that.
I'm going to link that up in the notes, and I apologize for not remembering the name of it. An excellent book. And it's all about habits and smart decisions and how they work. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I've heard the author on NPR. It's very good.
Yeah, he's really good. Let me ask you this. So I think that being healthy, I think you have to be healthy to have to be a strong entrepreneur. I think that those kind of go hand in hand. So it makes sense to me that you kind of cover both. But let's talk a little bit about juicing, just because I don't know a lot about it. So I'm just interested. I've heard you talk a little bit about it. And if maybe you could give some of us a couple of tips out there, why you do it, what health benefits it has, etc.
Okay, great. Well, I've been sort of a health nut all my life, so I didn't have really a big weight problem. But those years when I was miserable in my corporate job, I was traveling coast to coast a lot, and I had gained about 15 pounds, which for me was a lot. I am a pretty small person, and I was miserable mentally, and nothing was working. Sheila, I would get up at 4 a.m. before I go to my work meetings in California, and I would go to the treadmill, and nothing was working. I was like holding on to the weight. So I stumbled upon juicing by accident, and I was like, what is this, and it was fun. So this is extracting the pulp and fiber from a vegetable or a fruit. Very different from blending. People confuse them, and it's normal to confuse them, but it's very different. And you drink the juice. Well, I started doing this at home. So I experimented. I loved it. It was delicious. The first shock, it's delicious if you mix the right things, vegetable juice. And second, my weight started coming off. Like it was just like shedding the weight, and my skin started glowing, and I started to notice these little miracles that I had not seen. I was exercising all the time. I was trying to be fit. So juicing was just like the little miracle for me. And I started talking about it on my blog, and I started researching it. I saw there's so much there, and it just started to pick up from there. But I can go into more detail if you want, but basically that's the story.
Well, that's really, and we'll link the books up in the show notes as well, because I think that's fascinating. And I love that you're doing something different. And you weren't afraid to say, okay, my blog's kind of been about this one thing, and I'm going to switch over and give you a little bit of personal thing about me, and I'm doing this juicing thing. And it pays off because you were not afraid, or you got over the fear.
I got over the fear, right? No, I think it's fascinating that it's so natural. It's not a fad diet. It's just, and it does. And in fact, I have studied this because over the years, it's like 5.5 years now I'm doing this. And now I run a clinic. It actually starts to get rid of your bad habits. It's like a gateway to good habits. I'm not kidding you. Like if you're juicing, you do not crave junk food. They cannot coexist. So I think there's a lot of incentive to look into it.
Very interesting. Well, and we will. Again, I can't wait to look at more into that, and I'll link that up as well. Hey, let me ask you this. I'm a bit of a systems and operations nut. So running an internet-based business, how systemized are you? I mean, how do you do work-life balance? I know it's probably a little different now that your husband's working with you. And how does that work out, the two of you working together?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first, right? It's working. We've gone through the adjustment period, and I think we are very, very close. I believe more couples can do it than they think. Like the fear is actually bigger than you may think, but you have to respect each other's boundaries. Okay, so we have separate offices, closed doors. We knock when we enter most of the time, and we use systems. So now let me get to the systems. We are using a few systems that are indispensable. Your guests have probably mentioned some of these, but I'll go through them. Dropbox, Evernote, Asana. Asana, Asana. Have you heard of that?
I have. I don't use it, but I've heard of it.
So that's something we use. And so instead of me going to him or emailing him and saying, did you do this? We keep all of our tasks and our projects on Asana. We assign it to each other. We put dates. It has a little chat window. It has status updates. You can attach things. I mean, that is our task management system. And then I use... Yeah, exactly. And then I use things for my personal. It's a paid product on the app, on the iPhone and on the Mac, and it syncs up everywhere. And that's for task management. And for other systems, I mean, I do want to say I know you're a nut because I've been listening to your show in terms of systems, and I need to still add even more systems and processes. I have come to respect them a lot.
And you know what I find most interesting about that is that, sometimes, and I do consulting and coaching with, bigger companies as well. And they don't, you're a single solo business. Actually, now you have your husband as well. But so it's the two of you. But even as a solo entrepreneur, if you systemize things and schedule things, it makes your life so much better.
It does. It does. It's amazing. You don't realize how much time you waste. I'm still watching that because, I mean, just something as simple as having an email template that you pull out.
Absolutely.
You should never, ever retype the same thing ever.
I so agree. And I don't know if I use Gmail. I started on Gmail a couple of years ago, and at first I didn't like it, but I love it now. And I have so many, and those templates are like canned responses for simple things.
Of course.
Exactly. And it's not saving you hours at a time, but it maybe eventually it saves you minutes. And I think those repetitive things, and it's the repetitive things that I think need to be systemized and make a huge difference. And I love that you're using Asana. I use Podio or Basecamp, and I'm thinking about switching, but just having all of your projects in one place makes a huge difference.
Exactly. And it's a collaboration tool. So if you have people helping you with your business or assistants, and I believe you can only let them view a certain project and give them permissions based on that. No, it's a very good tool. I have used Basecamp a little bit when I worked with a VA before. I wasn't crazy about it compared to Asana, I have to tell you.
Basecamp's really basic. To my opinion, very basic. If you want to pop it up a level, you're going to have to go into something different.
Right. I think you're going to love Asana, and it's free.
Even better.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the nice thing, and one thing why I like to talk about systems on the show as well, because a lot of these things are free, and if you can just get over that little bit of a learning curve.
Yes.
Just that little bit of a learning curve, and then I think it will make your life easier.
Right, exactly. And you have to decide what systems work for you, right? I'm sure you see this with your clients where not everything is going to work for everyone.
Sure.
But you're going to pick the top 3 primary tools that are like the foundation of your business, and you got to stick to them.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I write a process for creating a podcast from start to finish. I finally started doing this, and I am sticking to it, because if I don't stick to it, what's the point of actually writing the process or buying the app or downloading it, right?
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I have templates for that as well. So I just drop my stuff into templates because it makes it so much easier.
It does.
And my WordPress, my posts are templates as well. So I drop into templates. Do you do that?
I don't do so. I have some templates, but I write out my posts in general. If there's anything that's repeatable, yes, absolutely. I use the templates. Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Listen, if you were going to give someone in your shoes a few years, like where you were a few years ago, maybe they're stuck in a job that they're not happy with, or maybe they really kind of want to be a stay-at-home mom, but also want to do their own thing. What advice would you give that person?
I would tell them first and foremost that it's possible to do something different, in case they stop listening to me. Like, I want to get that in right at the beginning. It's possible, because I didn't think it was possible, Sheila. There was nobody tapping me on the shoulder saying, well, this may not be it. Get out. Get out of here. So, and you waste time, and you cannot have those years back. So I would just wake them up. If they do nothing else, I wake them up and say, it's possible. Go out there and start looking, and put the idea in their head that they can do whatever they want It may not be tomorrow or next year, but they can do it. They can start planting the seeds. So first, it's possible. Second, what is it do you want to do and what is it you don't want to do? And that's an exploration and self-discovery. It's hard to know maybe what you want to do because you've only known this little job and you just can't even think. So then start outlining what you don't want to do anymore. Like work for an angry boss. Yes, write it down. Work for a big company, go on a business trip, go to meetings at 8 p.m., write all of that down. And that helps you determine what's left, what's important to you.
I agree. I think that's great advice. Let me ask you this. If someone wanted to hook up with you, where would you, I will link all this up in the show notes, but where would you want to send them?
I am everywhere at Prolific Living. So it's really easy to find me. If they're interested in juicing, the best way to find me is to go to Amazon.com and type my name, Farnoosh Brock, and all my books are going to come up. And but my prolificliving.com is my blog, is where I talk about everything we talked about. And I am happy to connect with your wonderful listeners and readers because I listen to your show. You're one of my favorite podcasts on my iPhone. So, and love everyone that you bring. So I'm sure that you have listeners just like yourself. So
thank you. I really appreciate it. And yours as well. Let me ask you this. Since you do write and you podcast, what's your favorite?
My favorite, I love the audio medium, Sheila.
Me too.
I really do. This is why I love the interviews. I love listening to audio. So I like consuming it. And I love creating it. So I think the podcast, and it pushes me because I have been very self-conscious of my voice. I'm actually thinking about taking some voice lessons.
Oh, you have a great voice.
Thank you. But you know how it is,
Yep.
you take the compliments and you're like, I think we can do so much with our voices. And it's such a big instrument. So it pushes me to play and explore. And the podcasting medium is great. But I love writing books too. So those two are my top.
It's funny that you said that because I told you that I took Cliff Ravencraft's A to Z course a year. It's almost been 2 years now. I didn't start for a full year after I took his course. And a lot of it was because I was afraid. I wasn't for sure what I wanted to do. And I was really afraid of my Southern accent because I think it makes me sound uneducated. And so a lot of people the fear of that, I almost didn't start because of that. And I get so many people that are like, don't worry about that. So if we could help one person out there saying, just do it. We're not 100% pleased with the way everything happens in our lives either, but just start.
Just do it and have good intentions. And by the way, my entire in-laws are Southern, so my mother-in-law has a deep Southern accent, and I adore her, and she's very intelligent. So no, and my accent, I'm like English is my third language, So, but I do have I relate to you because the self-conscious it comes across, but it doesn't stop me. So it better not stop any of your listeners. That's the whole point.
And then one last question I wanted to ask you. Being a coach, do you have a mentor or have you hired coaches yourself?
That's a great question. I have in the past, when I was in corporate, I took a coaching class from Christine Kane, actually, a year ago. She taught me a lot. It was a group class. And I am in a small mastermind with 2 other women. And we consider each other's mentor. Yeah. So I do that. And I'm constantly working on improving myself and reading books on coaching and watching programs. So I don't have a private coach at this time, but I have resources I can tap into and people that can lead me the right way if I'm making mistakes, or people that I can go to if I need advice.
Absolutely. So, and the power of the mastermind is amazing. And for those out there that maybe have never mastermind or don't know what we're talking about, it's just like a getting together with a group of like-minded people, sharing your goals and having some accountability there. I love mastermind. I'm in a small one. I think it makes a huge difference in my business and my life in general.
Yes, absolutely. People who can tell you when you're doing something wrong and not be worried about hurting your feelings, because that's what you need. And people who can guide you in the right direction and you do the same for them. Yeah, it's a great medium.
It's like when I go in and do consulting with a business, they're in it all day long. So it's really hard to see things when you're in the middle of it, right? But when someone else comes in with a different set of eyes, it makes a huge difference. And that's what masterminding does to me.
Yeah. Have you heard Les Brown's words? He says, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you said, right? You just can't see it until someone says that's not the way people perceive it. And you might want to change that a little bit. So you have to be open to feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Farnoosh, this has been awesome. You're a terrific inspiration. I love your work. We'll link everything up. If you guys have not listened to the podcast or checked out her website, you need to do so. We will. I am personally going to look into the juicing book myself, and I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sheila.
Have a terrific day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Successful Women Talk. Listen, a lot of people ask me, Sheila, how did you build a business from 0 customers in revenue to thousands of customers and multi-7 figures within a few short years? Here's the secret sauce. We had great products, excellent customer service, and we leveraged, this is key, we leveraged our systems and processes. If you want to learn more about this or how to reclaim your time, join me over at www.successfulwomentalk.com, and I'll show you how to get the life, business, and customers you want. Thanks so much.